Hello, Sheldon.
Hello there.
How are you?
Okay, yeah. Everything good with you this afternoon in the East?
Everything is going well. We have unseasonably warm weather. Um, so it just makes for I guess an extended fall.
Well, good. Good. The cold weather will catch up with you. Don't worry.
Yeah, no, it always does. It always does. So Sheldon, first off, I wanna thank you for carving out some time to talk to me. I wanna kind of dive into a little bit of how this started, and you're kind of part of this origin story. Um, we met in India in 2022 and it was at the summit. It was at the summit, and if I'm not mistaken, you were a speaker. You were one of the first year of that summit in India. You were a speaker.
I was more
You were the
guest.
moderator.
I was the moderator for part of that day-long event. Yes.
That's right. And so we had a chance to kind of get introduced, and I found your journey in this industry very, very interesting because just dynamically different than what mine was, and I was at an early stage in my entrepreneurial career. So you were very, very gracious with giving me time and answering questions. I was very inquisitive. I almost kind of felt like I was in college and I was asking the professor for, guidance. And you really extended yourself. It was very, and I was nobody to you. So thank you. Your graciousness was not lost on me, and I got a chance to know a little bit more about you. So I'm really excited to share this with others.
Well, thank you for those kind words, but everybody is somebody to me, and if anybody has questions, wants to know about the industry, wants to know about the health and wellness arena, I do my best to share my expertise. I've been in the industry, in the nutraceutical industry for over 30 years, so I think along the way I've learned a few things.
Yeah, yeah, and that's quite a long journey in this space. In 30 years, it's almost two different maybe three lifetimes in terms of all the how different it is. Even what do you remember from those early years in this industry? What were you doing? What was your entry point here?
Well, I think we still had payphones where you could put a dime in there and you could speak to an operator. Young folks today would say, "What the heck is he talking about? A dime and a payphone?" The early days you asked. You know, I I had a public relations firm and I had an office in San Francisco, right in the city of San Francisco, and my clients were made up of financial and real estate companies. And then, in the early 90s, that's when we had, the first downturn financially. And I was losing one client after another because they were losing money. So they couldn't afford my services. And so it was at that point in time I was referred to somebody in the nutraceutical industry, an ingredient company based in the San Francisco Bay Area. And things really worked out well. The company was InterHealth, was the original InterHealth, a small company, family owned. And, they say about, timing is everything and right place at the right time. And I think it was because right after I became affiliated with them and changed my whole career, again, going from real estate and financial to health and wellness to nutraceutical, they asked me if I thought if they brought this fruit from India, they brought it to the U.S. That I make something of it, and that fruit was the Garcinia cambogia fruit. It looks like a little squash, a little summer squash, and could I turn that into product? Can I name it? Can I promote it? And of course, I said yes because I had a lot of experience prior to going into the nutraceutical industry. And so they went over there, the owners went over there, they saw they'd have a supply of product. And Garcinia Cambogia became CitriMax, which was the brand that I created. CitriMax, the logo, the name, the tagline, all of the promotion, and it turned InnerHealth into a huge and successful company in a short period of time.
Wow, what a success story. Sheldon, that's an epic brand that you are attached to its DNA. That's such a considerable accomplishment. How do you top that, right?
Well, how do I top that? Here, give me a minute or two here. So, that kind of put me on the map, and there were some other companies who wanted to utilize my services. I think one of the things that I did for InnerHealth, and it had not been done before, at least hadn't been done successfully, was utilizing a celebrity spokesperson. And so for CitriMax, we brought in one of the original supermodels, a woman by the name of Kim Alexis, who has also gone on to do acting, and she's an author and a number of different things. And so we were able to bring her in and fit her into the budget and fit her into the entire promotion strategy. It was very, very successful. And there was then another company, I don't know, a couple of years later, TSI Group. Back then it was TSI Inc. Larry Cole heads that group. And they talked to me about the ingredient, a branded ingredient they already had, but they wanted to kind of jumpstart it. And so we brought in the actress Linda Evans. A lot of people know Linda from she had the Linda Evans Fitness Center. She was in Dynasty. She was in other films and other movies, and brought her in to really kind of give that brand something, which it did. Was very successful. And then again, I went on from there, and then if I bring it into the 21st century, I had the opportunity to be introduced to Kyowa Hakko, the Japanese-based company, now Kyowa Kirin, and was able to, again, right place at the right time. And I developed the brands Cognizin and Setria, which are huge successes for Kyowa. So, again,
Beautiful.
right place, right time.
I mean, so one of the best parts of this exercise, Sheldon, I when COVID, the onset of COVID created the virtual meetings as a normal way of communicating, doing business. I found myself very disarmed. I never realized how vulnerable I was to a screen, whereas in person, I never have really too much of a problem communicating and feeling comfortable in meeting new people. But the virtual aspect of it just kind of psyched me out. And this kind of started off as kind of like, hey, let's just have interesting conversations, play with it, talk to friends. And boy, some amazing conversations were coming out of it, because you got to fill the time, you got to talk about things. So people you've been working with for years, customers that are really cool about chatting, and they're like, hey, let me tell you how I got started in this industry. Me and the boss, we had a barroom fight. And I'm like, wow, like what a crazy origin story. And then these guys are working together for 22 years. Just you get to meet the people in the industry that you've been working with in some shape, way, even Kyowa Hakko, the implicit connection. I'm so familiar with Cognizin. It's in formulas that I'm supplying ingredients that complement Cognizin. So it's in my vernacular. There you are, you're at the onset of the beginning of that, and here our trajectories intersect. This is such a great time for all of us to share stories. And I feel like we're just getting started now, because people are really being able to discern who they want to work with, what do they want to create, and why do we want to create it? Like, there's a real reason now. I got these youngsters that are in their 30s, Sheldon, at Supply Side West. They're the innovators, they're the scientists, and they're the marketing guys. So
Yes.
they're controlling that message. So
Yeah.
public relations, Sheldon, you have this wild access to what it used to be and what it has become. And the way you service your clients has probably evolved. How much of the old school still matters?
Well, to me, it does. It matters a lot. And you know, more than just PR, public relations, it's really brand marketing. And the brand marketing is not just PR, it's advertising, it's social media, it's, you know, it's a little bit of everything that falls under what I call the marketing umbrella, the marketing communications umbrella. You know, when CitriMax was launched, we didn't have social media. It was old school. And you know, this is a story I told at Supply Side. I had a meeting with another agency owner, who is based in Colorado, does a lot of marketing in the cannabis industry. But I was talking to him about something called a VNR, or video news release, and he looked at me askew like, "What's a video news release?" And you know, back then in the early 90s, a video news release was put together. It looked, smelled, tasted just like a news story you would see on television today, okay, and as you did back then. And I was able to create those. I worked with former news people, some really talented news people, field reporters, videographers, and we put together about a minute and a half, maybe 2 minute news story. Not make it too much like advertising, because you know then a television station wouldn't run it, or potentially run it, and then we could send that out via electronically to every television station in the U.S. and they would have the option to either run that story as we gave it to them, or to take bits and pieces of it. We would also include what they call B-roll, some additional video, and they could take it and they could make their own story out of it, or they could contact the local doctor and talk about weight management or whatever the topic might be. So we did this for CitriMax. I put this video news release together, and we got exposure nationwide. In fact, even the stations mentioned the ingredient. They mentioned CitriMax, and it was incredible. And I went on to do that for several other companies. But today, you can't do that. And one of the reasons you can't do that, you know, we hear a lot about fake news these days, don't we? I won't mention who brought that terminology forward, but the original fake news guy was the former governor of California, Arnold Schwarzenegger. And he produced some video news releases that were fake. He sent it out to the TV stations, and they found out that he wasn't being truthful. And so that put an end to VNRs for all the PR agencies. But
Wow.
that, but that,
Wow.
but a video news release was really old school. Again, it's
Right.
not around today. You could take a VNR, you could take a video news release, and you could put it on social media. You could do that. Uh,
Sure.
but in terms of getting, you know, actual television coverage, network or affiliate stations, doesn't happen anymore.
No, no. And you know, your experience on the ingredient side, Sheldon, these you know, good manufacturing practices that are at the bedrock of these companies. Um, you know, with an influx of companies now entering the marketplace, featuring clinical studies, and you know, and it seems like everyone's got one now. That was some of the language I heard at this year's show, where there was a dearth of them. There was, you know, you had a couple of companies that were dabbling in it. Otherwise, it was just really just a hoshmash of commodity trading. But where do you see that CGMP standard compared to where it was? You know, you know those Cognizin, the Cognizin level and your CitriMax level, have things been tighter since then, or are things more lax?
No, things are tighter, certainly tighter. And you talked about studies, you know, I mean, it still happens today, but so often in the past, you had companies promoting a product using borrowed science. And, you know, I think today, at least I think so, you have more companies who are doing their own scientific, and that makes a difference. Um, you know, you have your own study, you can obviously make more claims. You can
Yeah.
say more about, you can say more in the promotion versus working off of somebody else's study. So I think from that standpoint, you're seeing more of that coming out from companies and maybe those that you just mentioned.
So you carved out stories when you created these brands. You started like a storyteller, an author, blank page. Are you naturally a creative person? Is this coming from a place where did you write poetry and short story fiction when you were young? Where does this
Uh,
creativity come from?
well, it's something that I didn't know I wanted to get into in terms of marketing, of media type work. Not at first, I got out of high school, kind of, looked at some college, just general type thing. One day I kind of stumbled on a school. I'm originally from Chicago, born and raised in the city of Chicago, and heard about a school that was in Chicago, Columbia College, and the instructors, most of the professors, if you will, were media people. They were a television or newspaper or whatever, writers, journalists. And I said, you know what, I think that's an area I want to get into. So I went to school there. I have a degree in journalism and communications. And while I wanted to be I wanted to be a sports announcer, calling Chicago Cubs baseball games, back in the 70s and 80s. It didn't work, but so then I got into the advertising and PR biz, and I've been in that ever since. So today, again, we look at today, and you hear a lot about PR storytelling. PR has always been storytelling, and that's the way I've looked at it. If I go back to Kiowa and Cognizin, when I introduced that brand, and I still look at it this way. Um, I realized that, the people that I was interfacing with at Kiowa, it was the U.S. president at that time and their national sales manager. And I realized one thing about that company is they had a sense of humor. They could tell a joke, they could understand the joke, even though we had maybe a little bit, between the Japanese, there was a little bit of a language barrier. I mean, they spoke English, of course. And I realized that when I was putting together the advertising strategy, that I wanted to bring that out. I wanted to bring out the sense of humor from that company. We're talking B2B here right now. And so the first ad that I developed, that my group developed, was a print ad, a full page print ad. And Cognizant is memory enhancement. And the ad that we developed was a man. You saw the back of him. He had a suit coat on. He had his shoes and socks. He was carrying a briefcase. He was a businessman, but he didn't have pants. He had boxer shorts. And he was going into an office building, and the headline read, "We think we see your first customer," right? He forgot his pants. And it was kind of a funny ad, and the company went along with it, and it really garnered attention in the industry. We took that a step further. The first trade show after that ad ran and the Cognizant ingredient was introduced was at Expo West, when they used to have ingredients companies exhibiting there, and that was in Anaheim. So we were in Los Angeles area, where it was easy to find out of work actors, and we found an actor that looked like the back of that man in the ad, and we brought him to the show and dressed him the same way, carrying a briefcase. He had a sport coat. He was wearing boxer shorts, and people remembered that ad, and they wanted to take their picture with him. And I then made up 1,000 pair of boxer shorts with the Cognizant logo, which we gave out. And you and many other people who are watching this know John Benniger from Informa. And John will tell you, to this day, he still has those shorts. He's never worn them. And he always says, and he still will say it, he thought that was one of the best promotions he had ever seen in the industry. I kind
That's
of blow on my own
classic.
horn there, but I'm telling you, that's, if you ask John that right now, I know he'd say that.
Hey, you know what? That's in line with everything that I've kind of enjoyed about these conversations, is getting really those really deep personal insights I mean, that's taking chances at a time when you probably have a very, you have very small room for margin in that era, right? You gotta swing big, and you did. You had fun with it. You understood your client more than anything else. That's what I took away. You really
Yeah.
understood your client's personality, which which kind of brings me to something that I really want to focus on, Sheldon, if you're okay with it, is one of the things you shared with me is that you and your wife are involved with a part of a community that lends itself to foster care of children, very vulnerable children, very young children, the youngest. And I wanna, where the depth of what's within you is really compelling, because even thinking about raising a child and then attaching yourself for a long time, that comes with its strings. And then to love these children for a short period of time, eventually knowing they're gonna go on to a better place, they're gonna move into another future family, and you're just there to make sure at their most vulnerable, they get the most love. Wow. I found that to be something that really pulled at me. And I I want you to just tell me about this. It's Quality Parenting Institute
No, it's a quality parenting initiative.
Initiative.
Yes.
Yeah.
And even I'll take it a step further. Yeah, we get them quite young, sometimes as young as 2 days old, uh, picking them up at the hospital because there is no mother and there is no father. Okay. Uh, you know, at least a mother has the wherewithal to come into the hospital to have the child. They may be homeless, substance abuse, other mental issues involved, but at least to be able, as I say, come into a hospital and have the child and maybe disappearing after that. And again, maybe who knows even who the father is. The Quality in Parenting Initiative started by a law group out of San Francisco, looking at the state of foster care, not only here in California, but nationwide, and getting the Department of Social Service organizations, again, nationwide, to be able to buy in on this, to make things better for foster youth, make things better for social service organizations nationwide, because they tend to get a bad rap. Uh, we often hear they say the system is broken. It really is, even though it's become better in recent years. And every state is different, every county is different. So, I don't mean to point a finger at every organization, but there are issues there. I had just recently, actually last week, attended the annual meeting of the Quality Parenting Initiative held in San Diego. And again, it's just to kind of get a sense of what the industry is doing, what other counties are doing, and what can we adapt. In my case, I'm in Fresno County in California. What can we do to make things better for foster youth? In terms of what I have done, my wife and I have been caring for little ones for the past 12 years. We focus on newborns, infants, and toddlers. As I say, we've had them as young as 2 days old. We usually don't go older than about 2, and it's just the way our lifestyle is, and we travel. If you have an older child, you can't take them out of school, but if you have an infant or a newborn, certainly you can. And we've had several children that we've taken to trade shows. We've showed up at Supply Side West and Expo West with my wife carrying a child on her, somewhere on her body, or in a stroller when you can bring a stroller. And so during those 12 years, we've had 19 children, which might not seem like a lot to some people, but to some people it is. 19 children. And they've been with us anywhere from a couple of months to as long as 15 months. And you do get really close. You can, because we care for them as if they're ours, because that's the only way we know how to do it. And then yes, they are adopted, or sometimes there's reunification with the birth parent. But while they're with us, we want to make sure they have the best care possible, be it within our home or taking them to the doctor or getting them out to be more social, because a lot of these children have not had that opportunity. And it's something that we enjoy doing and a way to give back to the community.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Sheldon. I think one of the hardest things to try to understand is, where do you get that deep well of love from? How did this start? When did, what was the how do you become involved in this?
My wife had a friend who was with an adoption agency, a local adoption agency. She asked her if we wanted to adopt. She said she didn't think that that was in the cards for us. And then she said, well, how about foster care, looking after children for a short period of time? So we discussed it and thought, that's something that, we should look into. And so we went through all of the training for that, because it's not just, oh, here, where do you sign? And, let's go on day one. There's a lot of training involved. It turned out that agency then ceased doing business. We went to another local agency and really kind of had to do that training all over again. So training, which is usually can last close to a year, we did almost 2 years of training. And that's how we got into it. And we thought, you know what, we'll try it. We'll see how it works. Remember that first child we had, we thought after she was with us, she was with us for about, I think, 8 months, if I remember correctly, and then was adopted by a family kind of in the area. We thought, oh, we've done this once. We got this down. We know how to do this. And we quickly found when the next child came into our home that we didn't have it down. We didn't know everything. And every child and every situation is totally different for whatever reason. It's, because of the bio parents, because of a family member, because of the Department of Social Services is a little bit different, and we don't always work with the same caseworker. So even today, while I think in general we get it, we understand it, there's always things that are different, and you just have to kind of go with the flow.
Right. Yeah. So over the years, you've had to travel, and when you take these children with you, gotta believe that creates some type of footprint in their growth pattern. Like, these children otherwise wouldn't have left and had any kind of opportunity, and here they are getting swooped up in an airplane, and who knows where they go. That's an amazing impact you're having. And we're in that space, aren't we? Like, you get to touch these children's lives, but we're in the health and wellness space. There you are creating a story with CitriMax, creating a story for Cognizin. People are going to consume this. People are going to benefit from it. That's the direction I see in this show, Sheldon, that we're returning to some more, I think, formidable formulations and interest from a consumer perspective. Yeah, let's get some really good products out there. What are you seeing from what what you saw at the show and just from the industry as a whole?
It's interesting when I met a show, not to avoid that answering that question, but I met a show. I have so much going on. I've got meetings, and you know what I'm talking about here. I think your viewers will too. It's we've got meetings. I've got client meetings over there. I've got new business development meetings. I'm running into people that I haven't seen since maybe before COVID, still at this point in time, who are just now returning to the industry and going to trade shows. And it seems like I've got so much going on that I don't always have a chance to look at what's trending. Yes, there's a lot of companies out there with gummies, and there's a lot out there of probiotics and things of that nature. But in terms of really kind of getting into what I'm seeing, I don't always have a chance to see that. Now, last month, was invited to speak at an ingredient show in Tokyo at Health Ingredients Japan. And I spoke about trends and opportunities in the US market, especially for Japanese companies who are thinking about expanding to the US, expanding their product line and coming over. And so I talked about, again, trends and opportunities. Two of the areas, maybe three of the areas I can remember now. Last month seems like an eternity ago, but certainly one is women's health. And I think really we probably saw this here at supply side, women's health that was for so often been overlooked. And, I think now, menopause isn't a vulgar word in the industry. And so there are a number of products that are focusing on menopause. So that is one area from a trend standpoint. Another area are wearables. Now, I don't know if that was prevalent at supply side, but wearables, that market is expanding. It was one time we had that Apple Watch to tell us our heartbeat and how many steps we were taking, but now that's expanding into other wearables to tell us about our heartbeats and blood pressure and all these kinds of things. And I think another area, so that's wearables, that's women's health, and I think also we're looking at a larger expansion of probiotic products. So those are three areas that I talked about in Japan that are happening here in the U.S.
Yeah, wearables is very interesting. I attended a gala in New York City that was hosted by Care and Wear, and they're this wearables company, and it was put on in conjunction with Obvi, which is a collagen health company. And if you don't know them, I'd be very curious about your thoughts when you do look at their storytelling, their branding, and how they're out there. They're setting the tone for this modern day, being a brand, having their own space, carving out their niche segment, but then sharing all of the information about what their failures were, what went well. This is what we did. This is what got us access. And then they're kind of becoming a platform upon which other CPG brands can catapult. They become this nucleus of comparable brands. You become a community of brands, and it's a blending of communities now. And your community could have 1,500 people, Sheldon, and those 1,500 people can make buying decisions together. Hey, we like this protein, we like this, we like this, we like this, and it's a different world right now. You have to have something. You can't just be average anymore.
This is true. You got to think big or go home.
I think so. I think everyone's got to swing for the fences right now. I think there's one area where maybe you could be nimble, and that's probably in this functional food space where you have these you have lion's mane's been around for a while, but it's the information in its periphery, right? The psychedelic side of it has enhanced lion's mane's presence, and there's some brands out there experimenting with how to make that as useful as possible and navigating this space of psychedelic and cognitive reformation. And that's, again, that's where our regulated industry, misinformation, we were saying fake news earlier, it's troublesome when our industry is referred to as unregulated. It's highly regulated. There are a lot of regulations. There's a lot of rules, very difficult to enter this market.
We hear that all the time, that, there's no regulation, but absolutely it is, yes.
Yeah. So bridging that regulation, these functional food ingredients, they create some gray area people kind of, and that's where I think there's an opportunity for someone to maybe carve out a real special space where they standardize, and really meticulously are able to demonstrate the benefits of these active ingredients, and deliver something new and innovative. And it's hard. It requires technology. It requires a really solid supply chain. Right now supply chains are replicable. If you've been doing business in China, you can easily now work with someone in India. You've seen that. India is highly competent and very discerning. And let me bring that up to you. India, how high are you on India?
Well, I've had several clients that are based in India. Um, uh, not currently, but it doesn't mean I won't get one tomorrow. I hope to. I'm talking to a company that is based there, a very well-known company. But through the years, I've represented a number of Indian companies, and I would agree with you that the bar is high. I think the bar is higher now in India, and I think that they are quickly becoming a world leader. If they weren't a world leader, but they're making themselves more aware of what they can do. And we talk about the summit, that where we met a few years ago. I think Amit, who runs that group, has done a lot with artificial intelligence, certainly as it pertains to ingredients. And he's really, I think, opened the doors to many new opportunities for companies that are based in India.
Yeah, yeah. The advent of the AI side of it, which is I guess going through as many iterations of formulations as possible, factoring in different manufacturing regional requirements, what's allowed, what's not allowed. The product development side of it, scientists can now uh, multiply the number of projects they're working on, how many eyes they have on things. How much collaboration do these ingredient manufacturers, in your estimation, have to have in order to, like, they got to be ad hoc consultants to their customers because they got to play in the lab together. And so ingredient manufacturers have to be tapped into the AI side of it too. If their customers are going to be working on it, they got to know the speed and rate at which their customers are going to be processing information.
I would agree. Ingredient manufacturers have to. And if I come back to what we talked about in the early going here, how different PR is and brand marketing is from years
Yeah.
ago. Well, we didn't have AI then, but personally, I don't like AI for the work that I do. Okay, I like to because I am a writer, and I think I can string a couple good words together and make some good intelligent sentences out of them. That I'd rather create something on my own rather than artificial intelligence telling me what direction or what I should be saying. Do that research again. When I started out in this industry, we didn't have Google, all these things, and so you had to create from within, so to speak. But from a manufacturing standpoint, I think certainly it's something that is necessary, and companies need to adapt to it and learn about it. If they don't at this point in time, it's just part of doing business.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you worked with very complex regulated ingredients and then kind of hit the wall with regulators? Have you had interactions where you weren't able to maybe promote or market a product as expected?
Never in that, and never had a problem. I think I understand the regulatory issues, what you can say and what you can't say, which I think is an advantage because I think a lot of people, even in the marketing side, who are serving as consultants, might not have that wherewithal, that understanding. So that's something that we're able to offer a client. I've never had an issue. I've never been called on the carpet for something I shouldn't have said. And, I'm not going to get a client in trouble. That's going to get me in trouble. And
Yeah.
I'd hate to activate my insurance coverage for something like that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. What are the challenges with modern social media and like the number of affiliates that promote and, really there's not a lot of control over who the messaging, the company itself could have its own guidance and then the messenger could decide to distort it for their own gain. But the complicity is with the brand. How do how do you deal with such a difficult market where in the past you had very strict guidelines? You can manage it.
Fortunately, it's not something that I've had to deal with. Again, I personally, I know what I can say or what we can't say as my group, as my team. And I'm going to help guide a client that way. You can't say this or you can't do this. Um, so I mean that's always a concern about again about what you can say and what you can't say. Um, I talked again earlier. I talked about celebrities that I've worked with for ingredients. These weren't even retail products. And I think that more ingredients manufacturers are not doing enough promotion. And I think that they need to do more promotion because this has been proven that with 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 strategies I've developed for clients is that if you can take that, if you have science and you can take your ingredient out to the consumer and talk about it, it comes back to the industry for retail products manufacturers to want to say, oh yeah, I want that ingredient in my formulation. So I think ingredients manufacturers need to do more consumer promotion. Again, we did that with CitriMax. I did that with TSI's ingredient called Ostivone, which is a bone health product. And we focused on women. That's why we brought in Linda Evans. And she was talking directly to women in the consumer marketplace, both in print and in broadcast media. And so I've done it with some other clients too on a smaller scale where we haven't had a celebrity spokesperson. So that's what I think companies need to do. They need to set aside a chunk of money for promotion. They should think about not always promoting just within a vacuum within the industry, but going out to the consumer marketplace and let the industry start to hear about it. That's my strategy, and I wish more of my clients and other just companies would get a handle of that and do that.
Where where I see pretty interesting correlation here is my local vitamin shop is flourishing. And the manager there, I'm friends with him. And I always ask him, I'm like, you have a really good pulse on this brick and mortar business. The theory is that brick and mortar, everyone's buying online. And it's true, a lot of people buy online, but a lot of people still rely on going to brick and mortar. And what you just said about advertising or promoting in a vacuum, that works if the idea is everyone's buying online, because then like you're just living in this box, right? In this virtual world. But going out to a vitamin shop means, yeah, you're looking at the local advisor there tells you a little bit of information. Hey, we have a new protein here. This is really good. Or, oh, you're looking for something that's low sugar. Or, I mean, you don't, it's a very interesting thing, that promotion that you're talking about. I have a friend of mine who's the founder of Green Regimen, and he's in GNC and he's doing a national tour. And today he's in Dallas for about half the day, and then he's going to be in Garland the other half of the day doing a face-to-face promotion and like getting out there, getting his name out there outside the vacuum, in front of the consumers. He's bootstrapping it. He's been in business for a while, and like he knows how to make it work. He knows how to leverage every ounce of his identity and then cross promotions. I feel like you two should definitely meet. He's a Southern California guy. But I see what you're saying. A lot of opportunity, a lot of opportunity to kind of go back to traditional tactics and traditional spends. What type of timeline is this? You know, today's modern world is like, hey, you could spit out some content in a jiffy, but the traditional way that you're describing, what's a timeline look like for that?
Well, it doesn't happen overnight, okay?
No.
And I think there are companies say, well, you know, what can we do in 6 months? It actually takes 6 months to really get a program up and running, okay? A
Okay.
campaign or a program, you know, because there's, you know, learning about the company and starting to develop materials and determine which avenue you want to take. Is it just PR? Is it a mix of advertising? You know, we want to do some video production. Video production is certainly key to have that on a website or on social media, wherever possible. And so, you know, it's going to easily take 6 months to really kind of get up and running. You might start getting the message out there sooner, but before you start to really, you know, feel something, and but it takes a while, okay? And that's just a startup version, but you really want to go, you want to look at a year or 2 years out, you know, what I did, what a company did during that period of time, how has that paid dividends? Yes, sometimes you do catch lightning in a bottle, you know, as I've been there, but it doesn't always work that way. um, you know, and even with social media, even with, you know, you hear about influencers, yeah, then you have to be careful there. Did they make some claims that they shouldn't be making? You know, did the FDA hear about it and they're going to come back and get you? So you really need to kind of see, you know, what those strategic elements are within an overall strategy, put it out there, and know that, again, you're not going to always catch lightning in a bottle. I, you know, we see so many companies in different categories, whether it's certainly on a pharmaceutical side or on the cosmetic side, on the food side, using celebrity spokespeople. Uh, it's not cheap. I think you have to kind of be careful on how you position it, but I think that the industry should do more of that. And those who have used celebrities, companies who have used celebrities in the past, uh, you know, I try to zone in on that. I like to see what they're doing, and I always feel they never quite do enough. Yeah, it's okay to have them at a trade show signing autographs at a booth, but again, taking the further, again, going out to the consumer. I'm talking about B2B, promoting to the consumer, talking about an ingredient. And that's how CitriMax was started. You know, there was one company that took the CitriMax ingredient and had it in a product before all of that promotion hit nationwide. The company is Natrol. Different owners these days, but Natrol took that ingredient and they developed a retail product, which they got permission to call it CitriMax. And
Wow.
when all of that promotion hit in print and broadcast, they were the only ones out there and took advantage of that. They already had product in retail stores, but then it was all these other companies hearing about it, and they said, yeah, we need to put it in our formulation. And then, you know, it took off from there. I think the same thing happened pretty much with Ostivone, for TSI. Again, it was getting the word out to the consumer. In that case, it was the women's market, and it came back into the industry and helped them take off. Yeah. So that's what I'd like to see more of, companies doing. Yeah. And it does, as you
Yeah.
say, and like I said, you know, it just doesn't happen overnight. It can, but usually not.
Yeah, it's probably apparent that there's going to be a hybrid of this where you have deployment of short-term media or short-form videos, short-form promotions that kind of send out blips. But there's a more traditional approach concurrently being designed, and then you try to just blanket the marketplace with that branding, because the consumer today gets saturated so quickly, right? Like they you see it's such a wild chase for dopamine. uh and you know, these 10-second videos are sometimes even just barely long enough, and then you're just like, all right, what are you trying to do? What are you trying to get out? So that's going to be interesting to see evolve. And I see a lot of youngsters in our industry, very creative with uh, creation of media, and like, you know, also creating stories inside, embedding stories into promotions, right? Like almost like the new sitcom is just like some form of a commercial, and you got characters, you got dialogue. You don't even know if it's real or not until you at the end you're like, oh, there's a product being presented, and you didn't even know you were being sold. Um,
You know,
a lot of interesting things.
there's a lot of things that younger people are doing that, you know, I'm trying to catch up on. And look, I've got a young niece, and I saw a bunch of photos on Facebook, and almost all the photos, these young people were sticking out their tongues. Okay, you've probably see it a lot. And I had to respond to it. I said, "What is this business with sticking out your tongue in all these photos?" And she said to me, she did respond. She said, "Well, it's a millennial thing, and years ago, you had the peace sign. We stick out our tongues." But I think the peace sign had some meaning back then. That was the response she gave me. That's our version of the peace sign.
Yeah, I mean, back to I think your ability to know the Kiwa team and their personality, and then embrace that humor. Um, in the same way, today's consumer is eclectic and very confusing to even me. I mean, I'm not at all a dinosaur, but I'm absolutely a dinosaur to my kids. And
Mhm.
if I even dare try to say some of the words in the vernacular today in their presence, there's just this aghast, and they're just mortified. And I look at it and I say, well, that's also a consumer in the making. They're 11, 12, and like, I am in the space of communicating this kind of messaging to companies that I work with. I'm not necessarily the brand manager guy, but I'm the person that's kind of bridging them to a brand manager guy, and then kind of a voice of reason in a situation where, hey, Uday, what do you think about this or this? And I can't be lost in my own delusion of like my world still exists. The world is transitioning over to new ownership, and India is going to have more than half of the country is under the age of 35. That's a lot of people. Um, they really control, if sticking the tongues out is the thing, then I bet you there'll be some labels that are going to kind of copy the Rolling Stones, right? The Rolling Stones and Kiss. Those two come to mind when it comes to like anything about, sticking tongues out. So we'll have some modern
Yeah.
day iterations of that. Um, what's the most fun you've had branding? Like, in terms of like, I know you've had successes, but was there a particular project that stands out and you sit there and you say you had the most fun in developing that brand?
Well, again, I'll tell you, I've got to go back to CitriMax because I had that chance the opportunity to travel with Kim Alexis, who was the spokesperson. And so we did these media tours. We did several media tours around the country, all the major cities. And she was a real person. She just wasn't a celebrity. She was a real down to earth person. And to be able to fly with her and have dinner with her, and she happened to be married to a former uh, pro hockey player who played for the New York Rangers, played by the name of Ron Duguay. They're no longer together. But when we'd go to New York, and people knew that she was married to Ron, and they would want him when she did an interview. They'd want him there too because they knew him in New York. Great guy, great guy. And so I always had a lot of fun around that. And I think and I started to mention this earlier in some things you said, but where I had some fun, for many years, I represented Life Extension, and had the honor of representing them up until COVID, and when their business model changed. I traveled a lot one of their staff doctors, in particular, Dr. Michael Smith, and great guy, smart guy about all aspects of health. And we did a lot of traveling together, primarily doing media interviews in New York, Chicago, LA, I mean, all the major cities. And, just had a fun time promoting life extension. And, I had the opportunity, we talked about doing some new and different things. And so, for example, it was Dr. Smith writing a book. He'd always wanted to write a book. And we talked about the strategy behind it. And, I brought in a ghostwriter who I knew, and between the ghostwriter and Dr. Smith, they developed this great book. And, we did a lot of national promotion, a lot of TV promotion, again, traveled around on that. And so that was a lot of fun. And also to see life extension, they've been around for a long time, and, but they were just kind of just out there, and they really wanted to get another push, another PR push, if you will. And so I came in, was able to give them that opportunity to get out there. The other thing that I do, in fact, talking about life extension, the other service that I offer is media training for corporate executives and doctors, because I also interview a lot of doctors. I'm not including Michael Smith. He's a national media guy. But doctors in general, I find, have a hard time talking to media, and whether they're doing an interview as we are here, or, going out doing talk show interviews or radio interviews, what have you. And so something that I've always done is, through the years, is offer media training. I did this for life extension. Back then I had a team. I always work with a team of former broadcast professionals. Now today I put together a new unit within Baker Dillon Group, which is my company, is 4 former broadcast news people who, when we sit down with a corporate exec or a doctor, we tell them this is what you have to do, this is how you need to look, and this is what you should be saying. And so I've always enjoyed doing that, being able to train executives on how to speak to the media.
Yeah, being able to tell your own story, right? Tell your own story, or someone else will tell it. That's
Yeah.
that's the way it is today. Attention and the ability, even like these products today, medical practitioner brands still really are at I think at customer trust level, they're highly respected. And medical practitioners still, especially those that are on both sides, where they'll be able to administer proper care, proper health, but advocate for non-pharma intervention first, and just trying to be on, holistic side of things. My parents are there, they're in their early 80s, and they're benefiting from that really healthy blend where you could really dose them up with pharma products, and then take some of that remaining spirit of their life out, or let them endure some of the discomfort. And this is my parents willing to do it. So credit to them that they're like, you know what, I'll bear what's bearable. So a doctor has to advocate for this too. If a doctor tells the patient, no, we don't want you to do that, the patient's impressionable and vulnerable. And so I think our elderly benefit from these type of medical practitioners. And luckily I've seen our industry grow in that space. You have some stalwart brands like Designs for Health, Standard Process, Biotics Research, this is a number of so many more, Zymogen, but then like they have a couple of new ones, Neurobiogenics. I mean, I think about how far those doctors can go when they have a proper branding expert, someone who can really take because you have consumer trust, you wrap that into some type of really well designed, that segment seems very attractive, I think.
And I say media training, it's not just talking to the media, but it's that bedside manner, so to speak. Okay.
Right.
It's how, like you
Yeah.
say, how you talk to your patient, if you're speaking at an event, how are you coming across, whether it's to
Wow.
a consumer audience or a trade audience? So all of that media training takes into account all those different scenarios. And it's something, and these are doctors, a lot of these doctors that I interview, because I do a lot of freelance writing in addition to consulting with clients on the brand marketing side. So I speak to a lot of doctors, and it's one thing while we're talking again as we are here, but then to download that transcript and to hear what they really were saying or they weren't saying, it's like, you know, again, they need that training. They need to invest time and money into doing it. And hopefully I'll be the person that they call on to help them. Yeah.
How does someone reach out to you, Sheldon? I mean, I think I'll absolutely be sharing your contact info. But if someone were to reach out to you, what do they say to you? How do they get your attention?
Well, first of all, they can go to the website, bakerdillon.com. Okay, they can go there. They can send me an email to Sheldon at bakerdillon.com. How do they get my attention? Well, they have to want to do it. They have to want to promote. Okay, they have to want to invest in promotion. And if they're reaching out to me and saying, here's their situation, here's their goal, here's what they want to do. Of course, we know one of the goals is they want to realistically, here's our goal, this is what we want to do. Do you think you have a strategy that can help us, go one way or another, or do this or do that? And I mean, they have to be sincere in wanting to do it. And once they tell us what they want to do, it's a matter of us doing research, me doing research within the company, within that category, within that health category, within that product category, to determine, if we think there's an opportunity, and then develop that written outline saying, here's what we would do, and here's how much it would cost. Again, with Cognizin, Kiowa was in the market for 5 years and couldn't gain any traction. They were, big. At that time, at least they were the #2 pharmaceutical company in Japan, and they couldn't gain any traction here. And when they were introduced to the Baker Dillon Group about what we should be doing, and we did that research, and we saw that their citicoline product, which became Cognizin, in Japan they had a patented fermentation process, which going back 20 years ago, fermentation of products, of ingredients, you didn't hear much about. And there were no citicoline ingredients that were branded. They were commodity products. And after I did that research, I was able to say, we think you've got the fermentation, you're Japanese, there's a quality aspect that here in the US about Japanese made products. We think you should take that ingredient, and that's the first ingredient you should brand. So you should brand an ingredient, and that's the first one. They went back and they huddled and said, yeah, let's give it a shot. And it turned out to be the right direction. I wound up branding about a half a dozen different products for them. Setria was the glutathione ingredient, was the next one. And there were others that, I guess didn't go anywhere or haven't gone anywhere, but you win some, lose some, so to speak. Just Cognizin and Setria alone, is enough to, move forward, keep the line moving, as I say sometimes.
Sure, sure. Have you been following some of the brands that are in our industry today in the last few years that have, gained a lot of limelight and even been acquired? Have you
I do, but if you're going to hit me with what brands are those, I don't know if I can tell you.
No, I just kind of I wanted to get in most recent news, there was the Ghost acquisition by Keurig Dr. Pepper. And the idea that, this brand, its inception, it's for the founders, they came from the space where they felt like they were unseen. And so hence the name Ghost. They were creating this brand that aligned with this, that a lot of people have that sense of like we're not seen, right? Like the outsiders, the underdogs. And they created this, and then 8 years later, through a lot of hard work and branding, they sold a percentage of their business for like over $1 billion. So, what a story, right? And not all the stories are going to end with that type of massive acquisition, but I think the innocence of that story is I think endearing. That today you can feel like an outsider, and if you can just craft the story or put it in the hands of a storyteller, because you don't
Mhm.
have to craft your own story, you don't have to learn how to be a creative if that's not in the cards. You can find a Sheldon Baker, and you can reach out to him and you can ask him a bunch of questions and say, "Hey, I've got something worth sharing in the form of this product or brand or community, but I have no idea how to do it." Sounds
Yeah.
like that's what Sheldon Baker does, right?
Yeah, and and I like the heads of companies, be it a owner or president or a CEO, whatever that top person is. I like them to actually be involved. Okay. But it's here's all the stuff, go ahead and do it. I want them involved. Okay. Sure, there's gonna be some other people in the middle, but I need to have that head person in that company involved. So if I'm calling one day, hey, Bill, I got this great idea and I want to talk to you about it, that they're there, that they're going to take my call rather than give me off to somebody else in marketing. Not to say anything bad about a marketing person or somebody else, but it's that decision maker. So, and I want them to actively be involved in the work that I'm doing and that my team is doing to help make that company a success. Because I think without it, and I've seen that all too often, there's you lose a lot. You lose a lot along the way. And the other thing too is that once you get going, once you get a program going, a campaign or a project, keep going, because once you stop and pick it up again a few months later, you lose that momentum. You got to say, yeah, yeah, you're hiring Sheldon Baker, you're hiring Baker Dillon Group. Let's do it. Let's put that program together and let's run it out there. Because again, as I said earlier, it's not going to happen overnight. You just got to keep pushing. Uh, you know, Life Extension was that way. They were a client for about 9 years, almost 10 years. We kept going. We kept seeing results. Um, yeah, there may have been a few hiccups along the way, but overall, I mean, the program really moved along and really generated a lot of promotion opportunities. You mentioned about going out to stores, going out to consumers, going out to retailers. That's what they did. I was involved in that around the country. It wasn't just all media, but you need to get out there. You need to put yourself out there and keep doing it. Yeah.
And can you be a successful D2C brand without being on Amazon?
Well, yeah, I think you can, but I think it helps. Uh, but
It
but
helps.
to be on Amazon, but you got to spend some money, right? Yeah, you got to spend some
Yeah.
money if you want to be on Amazon. Yeah,
No, without a doubt. Yeah.
yeah,
There's a lot to look forward to, I think, in terms of where uh branding goes. I'm seeing collaborations from in our industry. There's some personalities, Price Plow, Benjamin Kane, Mike Roberto, Joey Savage, from Savage Nutra. These are all, really established within their own space of personal health and wellness, and collaborating with McDowell Labs, Macro Labs, and just bringing together Cognizin, I believe, was one of the key ingredients. Kiwa was involved in that, and they had a couple of other ingredients, and just bringing a marketing a product to be sold, an energy drink, not sold, distributed for free, and just demonstrating the collaboration. They say collaboration happens at the top and competition happens at the bottom. I love that. I love that. I
hmm
love the spirit of that.
yeah,
That's what I'm looking forward to. They're doing another thing on BevNet, which is I think in December. so that they're coming up with another energy drink. I think we're going to see a lot more of these. I'm advising my partners in India who really want to get out there. I work with a couple of partners who are really, really polished in terms of answering questions, maybe being in front of a microphone or eventually getting on a panel. But then there's others that they're the science, they're the genius of the design, and they can't really communicate the message. And I think those are people that I would want to direct to you to have them have a chance to at least consult with you and see if there's an opportunity to kind of create that training. Because we need more of these storytellers. We need better products, but sometimes they get hidden, unseen, like ghosts. They're just, in the background. No one knows that they're there. And you just need a good a brand ambassador to kind of bring it to the forefront. So I look forward to continuing to stay in touch with you, Sheldon. I really enjoyed this time to kind of get a little bit more insight into Sheldon Baker and into Baker Dillon, what you're doing as far as, I think humanitarian work. That should be inspiring for all of us to do something. I'm a big advocate for service. And I think service helps us more than anything. I would dare to say that perhaps you get more from what you're doing in service than anything that those kids could be getting from you. Because you seem like such a wholesome, loving person. And I bet you your heart is rich with so many memories of goodness, so that anyone who comes in your orbit is left in awe of it. So that's what you've done for me. I appreciate you very much and all that you've done and do for the industry and for people.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to spend time with you here today. I'll tell you about those kids, there's little things that they do that they don't know they do and that they say or sounds they make. And, they may have been with us 10 years ago or 5 years ago, but, something comes up, we still think about what they said or how they would have reacted. And sometimes it's actually quite funny. But and how little kids are, you've been there, done that, and with your kids, and so it's creates great memories, and we do hope, of all those 19 that have been with us, there is only one child that we still are aware of where she is and what she's doing. Our very first child, they happen to be live about an hour away from where I'm at here. And so occasionally, we'll get that Christmas card. We occasionally will get together with them because the adoptive parents realized the job that we did. This child came from a very difficult situation, and so we know how she's doing right now. But all the others know, and it's not because we don't want to. It's because the adoptive parents or the bio parents, would rather not have us involved anymore, teaching them how to parent. Well, if they knew how to parent, they wouldn't have lost their child, or their child wouldn't have been removed from the home. But I appreciate the opportunity to chat about that, to chat about marketing, to talk about the industry. And, for you, and be it your clients or whomever, I'm always here to talk and see what success that might bring for all of us.
Indeed, indeed. There's a lot to look forward to, Sheldon. Thank you very much. Looking forward to staying in touch with you. You have a
Okay,
wonderful, wonderful afternoon and happy holiday season.
and to you too. All right, you
Thank you.
take care.
Thank you.
I'll see you
Stay
down the
blessed.
road. Okay,
Yes, sir.
bye now.